What's down, people, and welcome to the extended cut. So where we left off at. So last week we talked about Abram and how his wife Sarai pressed him into making her slave girl his little side chick. She figured since God stopped her from having kids, she'd just do it that way. Abram got that girl pregnant, and she was looking at Sarai some kind of way because of it. Sarai started treating her so bad that she ran away. God told her to go back and that he was gonna take care of her and her son. And now we caught up. So chapter 17 pick up 13 years after chapter 16. Abram 99 years old now, and when God show up talking to him, the first thing he say is, you know who it is, it's Big G. I'm all powerful and you need to live right. And after that, God told Abram the same thing he always tell him, that he gonna set up his covenant and multiply him. I think it's interesting that the first thing we read after the story about how he got that enslaved girl pregnant is God commanding him to live right. This whole time God been talking to Abram about the promise and how he was gonna take care of him. As far as I could tell, this the first time God came at Abram commanding him to do something. And it's on the heels of him and his wife taking advantage of this enslaved girl, which, don't get it twisted, was normal in society back then. But everything I read in here lead me to believe that God got a problem with mistreating folks, regardless of how acceptable it is in society. The next thing I notice is, this the first time God gave himself a title. Hagar gave him a title last chapter, and now he give himself a title. And the title he give himself is Almighty. And it almost sounds like Abram had been talking to God this whole time and ain't really know who he was dealing with, because verse 3 is the first time you read about somebody falling on their face before God. Like Hagar, the enslaved girl, seemed like she picked it up before Abram did. Which, side note, as you read through the Bible, you'll see that in a lot of cases, women pick up on the real important stuff, especially stuff about God, way before men do. It's just that you hear men's voices way more than you hear women's. So it seemed like men be the only ones hearing from God. So then God say, so this how this covenant thing gonna work. You gonna be the father of a bunch of nations, so your name ain't Abram no more. It's Abraham. It's gonna be a bunch of nations and kings that's gonna come from you. I'm gonna confirm that covenant throughout the generations, and it's gonna be permanent. I'm gonna be your God and the God of your offspring after you. As for y'all, you and your offspring, y'all's part in this thing is to be circumcised. That's gonna be a permanent sign in y'all's flesh that y'all up in this thing. If you don't know what a covenant is, we talked about that in this episode. If you don't know what it means to be circumcised, go holler at Google. So then God was like, you and every man up under your roof need to be circumcised. Whether they a servant or a worker or a slave, whatever. Anybody who ain't circumcised gonna be cut off.
You cut off!
Because he done broke my covenant. So that's the first time we hear about something Abram need to do. Up to this point, God just been making promises, but this covenant gonna require them to have some skin in the game. So the next thing God say is about his wife. He was like, as for your wife, her name ain't Sarai no more. You gonna call her Sarah, and I'ma bless her and give you a son by her, and nations and kings is gonna come from her. And then Abraham, did one of the stupidest things I ever seen. He fell down on his face and laughed at God, talking about a 100-year-old man gonna make a baby. My 90-year-old wife gonna have a baby? Then he was like, God, I mean, Ishmael right here, ain't he? And God was like, I said what I said.
I said what I said.
You and your wife Sarah gonna make a baby, and you gonna name him Isaac. I'ma confirm my permanent covenant with him and his offspring. As for your boy Ishmael, I hear you. I'ma bless him and make him into a great nation and all of that. But my covenant gonna be with Isaac, who Sarah gonna have this time next year. I have spoken.
I have spoken.
So that very day, Abraham grabbed his son Ishmael and everybody in his house and circumcised them just like God told him to. And this ain't nowhere in the Bible, so take it with a grain of salt. But I just imagine Hagar was up there looking at Abraham like, can you imagine having to circumcise your 99-year-old peen? Or being 99 and trying to circumcise your 13-year-old son? Regardless, somehow Abraham, Ishmael, and all the men up in that house were circumcised that day with no anesthesia. Lord Jesus. So that's it for this week. I'll see y'all next week, and as always, peace, and I hope y'all people straight.